Thank you very much, Chair. And at this stage of the meeting, it's hard to find anything new to say. I want to first, though, thank David Edgar for what he just said, but also for his writings over many years and the way that he has created a whole theatrical generation of people who will stand up against Nazi ideology and Nazi ideas and defend minorities within our society. So, David, thank you very much for all you've done over many years. This hall has seen many, many meetings over many years. Many of those meetings are actually meetings of hope, meetings of expectations, meetings of demands, meetings of soaring oratory that will look to a different and a better world. And I remember when Angela Davis and others have come here and described the conditions that they've come from, and so many others. Tonight is slightly different, because what we're doing is saying we're in a difficult time. And it is a time to stand together. It's a time to declare what we actually believe in, and it's a time to declare our solidarity with all sections of the community who are under attack or under oppression. Others have drawn the parallels tonight about the way in which minorities within our society have always been pilloried. From Jewish people that arrived in Britain, from Russia at the end of the 19th century, the way they were characterized by the popular press, the way that then became physical attacks upon them, that then became a whole tide of anti-Jewish behavior, which enabled the Nazis to rise, because it gave them the space in which to rise. The way in which black migrants to this country were pilloried again as taking our jobs, destroying our way of life, etc., etc. That, in turn, gave space for racists to attack individual black people on the street, gave space for the state to use the sus laws and others against young black people within our society. When the Irish people were demanding civil rights and justice in the late 1960s, all the anti-Irish jokes that had been there for years were brought out, dusted down, and used again and again and again. And because the Irish were so denigrated, it was easy to pass the Prevention of Terrorism Act. It was easy that 10,000 Irish people could be arrested, detained, questioned and examined and mostly released without charge. But again, a criminalised community. And so it goes on. We always spend a lot of time saying that this country defends its civil liberties, defends its way of life, defends its freedom of speech and defends its justice. There is some truth in that, and I was in the House of Commons when the Human Rights Act was passed, and I was very, very pleased when the Human Rights Act was passed. I was delighted, I was proud that I was there to vote for this Human Rights Act. At last, something on the statute book that gave rights, rather than said we're subjects apart from this bit of our Constitution. But then came 2001. Before that came the Terrorism Act 2000, and then came a systematic destruction of much of our civil liberties. We complain about Guantanamo Bay. We're right to. Of course we're right to. Belmarsh isn't that different. Those people that are still being held without charge, without trial, without date, without any expectation of the future, that are being held in our prisons, the later to be deported to country X, where the British Prime Minister or Foreign Secretary has signed an exchange of letters saying, please don't torture them or execute them for any offences that we might have detained them for, but whatever else you do is okay. What kind of policy is that? What kind of message is that about civil liberties and justice? Since 2001, we have seen an increase in attacks on ethnic minorities in our society, but we've particularly seen the vilification of Muslims within our society. That then becomes an attack on a way of life, it becomes an attack on costume, it becomes an attack on belief. You don't have to be a Muslim to say it's wrong. You don't have to follow any other religion to say it's wrong. You simply have to be a decent, ordinary, civilized human being to say we want to live together in one world, united and understanding that there is strength in diversity. Now, I have the great honour to represent Islington North in Parliament. And Islington North includes Finsbury Park area. And after the bombings of 7/7, the atrocious bombings of 7/7 in London, I went to North London Central Mosque the following week as an act of solidarity with the community. And after the ceremony had finished, I came out and there was a journalist there from New York. He comes up to me and he says, "I believe you're the Member of Parliament for this area. Could you tell me something about it?" I said, "Sure." So I took him on a little walk. I said, "Down there's a place many people worship. It's called Arsenal Stadium. Next to it, there's a church, St Thomas's Church, a Church of England church. Up that way, there's a synagogue. Across there's the Muslim Welfare Centre. Further up the road there's a Catholic church, very large Catholic church. Up that way, there's a Methodist church. Just over there is an Evangelical Christian Centre. Just down the road, the National Secular Society used to have its offices. And people from all over the world have made their first home in Britain or first home in Europe in this area, going back to the 19th century and earlier." And then I stopped, because I assumed he wanted to go. And he looked at me and he says, "Oh my God, how do you cope? How do you keep this lot together?" And I then realised I might as well not bothered. He had totally misunderstood the whole point. The whole point was, and the whole point I'm very proud to be able to make is, it's not perfect. Of course it's not perfect, the community. But inner city Britain, with all its complications, all its poverty, all its tensions and all its pollutions, is a place where all the communities live and work together with respect for each other. And we don't need John Reid to go to a stage-managed meeting and say it's very important you start ringing up the police every time you disagree with your children. I mean, it's not only stupid and crass, it's also very, very dangerous, because it ends up with a society based on intolerance, a society based on injustice, a society based on snooping, a society based on the power of the security services, unattributable, unaccountable, unquestionable, in order to put people in prison. That is the danger within our society. Tonight, we're standing in solidarity against Islamophobia, as we would stand for the rights of any other group. That surely is the way forward. And on a global level, couldn't our dear Prime Minister not go to Afghanistan and say this is the final frontier and this is the war of the last world, and instead start to understand that from the point of view of somebody poor and oppressed in other parts of the world, ringing tones like that from a very wealthy European leader or from George Bush sound like a declaration of war on the rest of the world. We need peace in this world, but we only achieve it by respect, by tolerance and justice. Thank you.